say will be on the recording of the meeting. So welcome to the WRT Board of Directors meeting. It's Wednesday, July 15th. It's 7:08 p.m. and we have most of our directors here. So our first item is to adopt the agenda. I've added things to the agenda, but if there are no objections, we will consider the agenda adopted.
How do we view the agenda?
It's in the Google Drive for the board.
Okay.
So you go into shared drives, board and staff, board meeting information, 2020, July, and then you're here. So.
Can I ask and be annoyed that I'm sorry, I can't remember if it's on the agenda. Is the grant thing on there? Because only exec voted about it.
No. I have a general line item that says review any executive committee actions since the last meeting. I finally decided to put a generic item in there so that we can do that. So, because I always
thanks.
Yep. I always forget. Hearing none, I'm going to see what happens if I try to present. I've never done a presentation before, and we'll see how that works. So I'm going to click present now, and I'm going to say a window. And what did I do here? Okay. Well, this is crazy. I can't select the window that I want to select. Well, this will let you see my entire desktop, so that's crazy. So I'm going to enlarge. This is my WRT Gmail account. So I'm going to blank that out and log in again. Just to show you folks what it's like. So you can just go to gmail.com.
Don't you ever delete anything, Dave?
Oh no, I am. Now, I guess I have to tell some background. I use a password saving program called TrueKey, and TrueKey automatically logs you in when you start to log into something. So I was going to show you how to log in, but it logged in for me. This is my regular Gmail account, which is Dave at DDW. No, this is ddeverweber@gmail.com. And so this is all my mail from them. And up in the upper right-hand corner here is my icon here that says Google account. And if I click on that, it shows my other Google accounts that I've entered. So I've also got another Google account called Dave at ddwservices.com, and it'll log me into that one automatically. So there's that one. And then if I go back up to the upper right-hand corner again and click on that icon again, I'll go to ddweber@WORT-FM.org, and a third tab opens up. So these are all in tabs on my screen, and they're all on at the same time. So I can go from my WORT account to my, come back, to my DDW services account and to my Gmail account. And so I'll go back to WORT here, and the easiest way to get into Google Drive is to find this little domino up in the upper right-hand corner here where it says Google Apps. I will move my mouse over there again so you can see it. Google Apps. And if you click on that, you get a drop-down menu with icons. And so there is Google Drive. If I click on that, it opens up a fourth tab and puts me in Google Drive. And Google Drive has a drive just for me, and that's ddweber@wordfm.org, or shared drives. So I'm over on the left-hand side of the screen here, my drive and shared drives. So if I click on shared drives, it opens up the drives I can see. And for instance, there's engineering and IT, and there's the IT admin team, which is a much smaller group that does more password-related stuff. There's the COVID-19 task force, and under board of staff, there are a whole bunch of things, but board meeting information is one of those things. So we'll click on board meeting information, and it shows the years. And this is 2020, so we'll click in meetings for 2020, and then we'll find July. And here's the directory for this meeting. Each meeting has its own agenda and, well, its own drive, its own folder. And so there's the draft June 2020 minutes. And here's the report for News Talk and Public Affairs from Shally, and our agenda, and so on. So have I sufficiently confused folks?
I have a question for the ease of Marla. Can people on the call who are not board members identify themselves so she knows what to put down as guests? So I'm on the, I'm Susan Sheldon, I'm on the call.
Okay. I'm Elizabeth Delaquest, I'm here.
Glenn Mitroff and Dan Lippert. Sorry. Glenn Mitroff and Dan.
Peltacos.
Hang on, Patty. It's Glenn Mitroff and Dan Lippert. And then Patty Peltacos.
It just clicks on.
How did you find it?
And Shally is playing station audio.
I'm fortunate.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I'm here. I'm Shally Pittman, the News and Talk Director. Sorry.
Always.
That's fine. So did I go ahead?
Dave.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at, it looks like I'm still on the phone. I don't know if it doesn't matter. I'm on my computer. So
I see your picture.
Oh, good. So when I'm on Drive, I see shared with me. I don't see any of these things that you're talking about.
That could be because, are you logged in to Google as your Gmail account or your WORT-FM.org account?
No, Gil, you're looking at shared with me, which is not the same as shared drive.
Okay,
Those
so
are
I go
two
to shared
different
drive.
things.
I go to shared drives. All I get is archives, Word, and engineering and IT.
Are you under the correct email address account?
Probably not. No. I'm under.
You want to be, yeah, you want to be under the one associated with that shared drive for board meeting information.
So that icon in the upper right-hand corner.
I'm signing in to my WORT-FM account.
Yes. Then
Right.
look at shared drive.
Okay. So shared drives, when I'm there, I see archives board only.
And then board and staff.
There should be one that's board and staff. And then that's where the board meeting information is.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, got it.
So I want to show you something else. So I will put us back into sharing for a minute. And I'm going to hide that. And I'm going to hide that. And I'm going to expand this till it's the full screen and you can see it. So now I'll go back up to my little icon in the upper right-hand corner here. And I select No, I'm sorry. That's not what I want. I want the one next to it, the apps, that little domino thing with Google Apps. And then if I go into that and select Calendar, that brings up Google Calendar. And so here's my Google Calendar. And if I come to today and the Board of Directors meeting, I can click on Board of Directors meeting, and a little window comes up. And with that, you can click on that and join with Google Meet. So that's a real easy way to get to that from your regular Gmail, your WORT Gmail account. So now I will restore things back to the way they were.
I can't see anything, Dave,
I
because
know.
I'm in by phone. So I was wondering, I tried to look through my emails and couldn't find an email that had anything to do with joining the board meeting. And when I went in the drive for Pledge at WORT-FM, the calendar just said 7 to 8 board meeting with no joining information. So can you tell me again, or I'll just take it offline with someone?
Yeah,
what
we'll
I'm
have to do it
looking
offline.
at?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's something in the calendar you're saying that you can click on that'll tell you how to join when the
Right.
clicking on the actual meeting does not tell you that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you should be
Okay.
able to click on the meeting and then a window will pop up.
No, the window that pops up just says the board meeting is from 7 to 8 today.
Okay.
There's another button that says join with Google Meet. You can click that and it'll expand.
Okay, I'll talk to you about it tomorrow, Tom.
Okay.
So that's a quick board orientation. There are a number of things that we want to talk about, and it'll take more than one meeting to deal with them all. But one of the most important things is that we'd like you to familiarize yourself with the staff reports before the meeting, so that if there's questions that have to be dealt with at the staff reports, you're familiar with the questions that we're about to discuss. I'm also attempting to put the financial information, the financial reports are also in that shared drive. So you can see our financial reports. Marla, Marty has joined us as well. So thanks, Marty. Welcome. We talked in the finance committee meeting, and Doug talked about helping me with board orientation, and so we're going to be putting a list together of the resources that will be useful for you to have, and over the next few days, Doug will be working on that and putting it in one of the folders on Google Drive, and then we'll send you an email about where it is located. WORT is a nonprofit corporation, and so on our website on WORT-FM.org, there is our articles of incorporation, and there are our bylaws of the corporation, and then there's the policies of the radio station, and they're also on the website. So I'm not going to share that screen with you, but I'll tell you where it is. It's under the About tab towards the top of the page. It's at Home, About, Music, News, and Talk, and whatever. And if you click on About, you get to Governance information, which is a list of all those things I was talking about. So if there's any questions about policies, you can look them up there. We don't have our volunteer handbook here, and we're working on a new version of that volunteer handbook, so there's nothing new to put up there, but that will happen soon. Doug, did you want to say anything else about board orientation?
Yeah, sure. So like Dave said, there'll be a single listing document which will have links to other documents for various things, just to orient yourself with just the different information. But then in addition to that, we also discussed in the finance committee today about going through the budget and I'm going to, over the next 3 months, I'm going to overview different sections of the budget so that when you look at the financial information month to month, you'll know where those numbers came from for that budget specifically. The first month in August, I'm looking at going over the personnel expenditures as well as the administrative expenditures. Or maybe that's the second month. The first month, we're going to look at income and like where all the different sources of income for both Susan and my departments come from. And then the next 2 months, we're going to look at where the money gets spent. The first will be both personnel and administrative. And then the third month is going to be those departmental expenses, like what goes to music, what goes to news, what goes to fundraising, and volunteer expense. So by the end of the 3 months, and this is going to be completely in layman's terms, I'm not going to be looking to glaze anybody's eyes over with the level of detail that we're going into, but it's going to give you some of those areas that to pay special attention to when we're looking month to month. You know, where the income is and where it should be coming from and how it's gone against the budget and prior years. So I think it'll be really helpful as we look at financial information in general, because then in November and December, we're going to be looking at putting together our new budget for 2021. So this way we can go into that vote and into that experience with foreknowledge of what you're actually looking at. And I think this is going to be a resource for the board that we haven't done before. So it'll be a work in progress, but I think it'll be a useful tool for years going forward.
But
Can I also ask if it would be useful to board members? And I want to respect your time because I think that board members are asked to read a lot of things in preparation for meetings. But would it be helpful if every paid staff prepared a, say, 500 word or less brief summary of what we do at the station? I know you can look at our job descriptions, but I find those really obtuse for a real good idea, simple idea of what we do and which one of us, if you wanted to get in contact about something, what we handle.
That certainly is a good idea. I think that's a good idea.
We could include that with our board reports next time, just like 1 page or 1.5 pages, and that's it. Here's what we do.
I think it'd be more useful in the area that Doug is preparing, so that it's available to us for every meeting, because I can see us wanting to deal with that when we deal with budget and when we look at finance reports and things like that.
Yeah, that seems to be more of an orientation document than a month-by-month meeting document. So I think we would definitely want to put that in a general place. But I agree, Susan, that's something that would be nice if we all prepared, and I think we can easily make it from our job binders that we have been working on over the past few years.
I just don't want it to be exhaustive because my job binder is long.
Well, right, but editing down is a lot easier than beefing up.
I just think for their sake, we should put a limit on how many words we use.
Yeah, but we could talk about that later. That's kind of minutia. But yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Hey, so I have a question.
Yes.
Where are we on the agenda right now?
Nowhere.
Brief board orientation, number 3.
Okay. All right.
I'm waiting for Eric to join, and he will probably be with us in another 2 or 3 minutes.
I vote we move on.
Before we move on to permanent election of officers.
Yeah, permanent sounds a little bit too much to me, but anyway.
What is permanent?
Right.
in the time of COVID. We could skip ahead to number 5, approval of the June 2020 minutes. They're also out there on the shared drive, and you can look at them there. And if there are no objections, we'll accept those minutes. And thanks to Marla for doing our minutes.
Thank you, Marla.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have no communications from the public to convey. And then item 7 is new for our agendas because I always forget to do this, so I don't leave it to my memory anymore. Any executive committee actions since the last meeting. And there is an executive committee action since the last meeting. Shally found a wonderful grant that was available through ProPublica. My lips are dry and I'm having a hard time talking. Through ProPublica, and she needed the approval of the executive committee to complete that form and apply for that grant. So thank you, Shally, for all the diligent work. You guys crammed really hard to get that done. Did you receive an acknowledgement that they received it yet? I don't know if Shally hears me. So welcome, Alita. I just saw Alita join us. I'm waiting for Eric to join us, and then we'll go on. Item number 8 on the agenda is finalized board member listings for FCC and CPB. Tom was working on that. Every year we have to do these, I think, and we're having a license renewal this year, so they have to be up to date. And so for Megan and for Rosie, we want to make sure you guys have those forms into Tom. So thank you.
They're in. They got those in, and those have been submitted to Foster Garvey already.
Fantastic. Thanks, Patty. Patty's having to leave. So that item 8 is done. I put an update about committees in Google Drive. This is item 9, review committee memberships and sign new members up to committees. One of the committees that needs people is the Personnel Committee. Since we lost Kathy, I'd like to have another member on Personnel. So if you think you'd like to do Personnel, let us know. You don't have to do it at tonight's meeting. I'm not putting thumb screws to anybody at the meeting. So, but there is a document there that describes all of the committees and currently who I think is on them.
Hi, Dave. I've
Yes.
resigned from policies and bylaws.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't catch up with that.
No, I'm not sure if I sent it to you. I don't remember where I put the information, but
Okay.
I'm going to resign from that in order to fit new committees, social media, and other things into my schedule.
Thank you very much. Policies and bylaws is a very important committee because every time we discuss a change to a policy, it has to go through policies and bylaws. So I would love to have a volunteer for that. You can contact me later or by email, especially if you have questions about what does it entail. You can ask now, or you can send me an email and we'll discuss that. But so that's personnel and policy and bylaws that really need people. So take a look at those and let us know if you are interested in being on them. And if I don't get enough volunteers, I'm going to start reaching out to people and asking directly. So,
well, I'll bring it up with staff too, because if Susan is resigning, we really should have a staff member on that committee.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Good point.
Dave, do you need people who are already on the committee to tell you they want to continue?
No,
Okay.
only if you want to leave. So,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
When you sent that all out with the documents, if we already answered what we were interested in, is that sufficient?
Yes.
Okay. So you don't need another email?
Right.
Okay.
So Dave, I remember there, at some point, there used to be a requirement that every board member be on 2 committees. Is that something I made up, or is that still part of the requirement?
I remember that, but I don't know if that's actually based on a policy or on bylaws. But we would like each board member to be on 2 committees. So,
with Paul Novak's departure from the Community Advisory Board, we'll need a board liaison to that. I'm the staff liaison, and the board liaison and staff liaison don't vote. The CAB is an independent entity, but we do provide communications, a monthly report to that group of people. So, and the next meeting will be in September.
Can Glenn, can you or Doug describe a little bit about the Community Advisory Board and why it exists?
Well, the Community Advisory Board is a structure that's set up by the CPB, and it enables us to get funds from the CPB, and it's a community kind of a board of community members. So, yeah. And then they review the station's policy and decisions. I gotta plug my computer in before it shuts down.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I guess I can continue then with the description of the Community Advisory Board. It's an entity that's outside the station, so it does not include any staff or volunteers of the station. And it's really just to make sure that WORT stays within its mission of serving the community like we say we're going to. So they look at our community outreach, they look at our policies, and how we engage with the community as a whole, both on air and off air. And then the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which gives us a $90,000 grant every year, one of the requirements for the CPB is that we maintain a community advisory board so that there is this outside entity advising us at times on ways we can engage with the community better, more efficiently, or to a broader scope. So they do serve a really good purpose. Everything, of course, is advisory. So the board, it's up to the board to take those suggestions from Community Advisory Board under advisement when they make policy changes for the station. So that's kind of like the big description.
Thank you, Doug. I was distracted by my low battery warning, so I wasn't being very eloquent there, but I appreciate it.
Hey, no worries, man. We're all one team here, you know.
So our Community Advisory Board in the past has done some things like fundraisers where they've gone out into the community, different libraries and community centers and done presentations. I don't see that happening anytime soon. Maybe some online stuff is a possibility. Our CAB generally, some stations' CABs only meet 4 times a year. Ours generally meets September through May monthly and then takes the summer off.
Thank you very much. That was never explained to me for the first 2 meetings when I was on the board. So, well, I still don't see Eric, but I think we need to move on to the elections. Unless there are any questions about committees, let's finalize committees. Questions from the floor about committees?
I did have in my board report, Dave, that I wanted either a committee or work group to work on diversity and social justice and inclusion.
Yes.
I've been to a couple of meetings, including one Zoom meeting where 800 people wanted to attend, but only the first 500 of us that signed up. It was public and community radio to talk about what is your station doing to make sure that all voices are being heard, that the station is welcoming, not just in terms of what white people think, but in terms of what people of color think when they think about welcoming to people. So I'm fine with it being a work group that would still provide meeting minutes and stuff. But I would like to see, I don't know if this is the point to bring that up or if that's later under new business.
Okay, that's a good point. I was just about to modify the agenda in one place, but I will add it under new business.
Excuse me. So, hi, Megan here. So the suggestion is to make a new working group that works on diversity and inclusion. Is that what I'm gathering?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah.
Okay. I would also encourage that work being done within policy and bylaws and the community advisory board. I would only be concerned about creating a siloed group where this work should be within the board at large and centered in that way. So maybe, I mean, I get that, there's some dedicated time to talk to that off to the side, but sometimes, just from my board experience, sometimes that group work can be siloed and the whole board group as a whole isn't as directly invested in it. And
thank you.
Yeah.
I think the takeaway that I've gotten from these meetings, and I've been now in 8 webinars and been discussed and have followed, and they're all community radio or public radio webinars, is that I don't see us that we're in the stage where we've identified by listening to people of color what the problems are. So to put this in the board hands where I think we don't have a lot of representation, what I'm looking for this work group to actually get involved in is to have as many people of color, volunteers, former board members, current board members, as many people of color to talk to us, for us to be listening to what they have to say.
Can I ask that we can put this down in the new business under item 11 and pick up the discussion then?
Great.
Yeah, exactly. I would also say that's under community advisory board work.
Let's discuss that under 11.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. I'm going to check people one more time. I think we have to move on even though Eric is not with us. And to move on to the election of officers. In the last meeting after the annual meeting ended, we elected temporary officers, and now we are going to elect officers for the remaining 11 months. I'm going to start with president. Are there any motions from the floor or volunteers from the floor who would like to run for president?
Move nominate David Devereaux Weber to serve as president for the upcoming term.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded for me. Are there any other volunteers or nominations for president?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there a necessity to have that vote today?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, and Susan, normally during the board meeting, there's not normally public comment to this level.
Well, there was a discussion in the finance meeting where Dave discussed what he was going to say before this, and that this isn't what he talked about.
Yeah, but we have to elect officers this meeting. This is business we have to take up at this board meeting.
It's in the bylaws.
Repeat that, Glenn.
It's in the bylaws.
Okay.
I understand. I'm just saying there was going to be a preface about encouraging people to run and not feel that people who are interested in continuing need to worry about hurting their feelings. There was a whole discussion and I'm not hearing any of that.
Well, Susan, you just presented it. If other people want to chime in, they can right now.
There you go.
Hearing nothing further, do we want to
Move
proceed?
nominations be closed and a unanimous ballot be cast for David Deborah Weber to serve as president for the upcoming term.
Is there a second?
Second.
Rosie seconded. Stu made the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, I declare I am the president. I don't know if I can say that or not.
Congratulations.
Nominations are now open for the position of vice president, for the office or position of vice president. Are there any motions or volunteers from the floor?
I nominate Stu Levitan.
Marty has nominated Stu. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Nominations of self or others? Hearing none. All in favor of Stu Levitan as vice president, say aye.
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 Are there any, and all opposed, say no. Are there any abstentions? So Stu Levitan is elected as vice president.
Thank you.
Thank you. For secretary, are there any nominations from the floor for secretary?
Alida, are you interested in continuing to serve?
Sure.
Was that a yes?
Yes, that's the end.
Okay. Well, I would nominate Alida to continue to serve as secretary.
I'll second it. Marla.
Are there any other nominations for secretary? Hearing none. For Alida for secretary, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed say no. Are there any abstentions? Alida has won. Congratulations, Alida.
Thank you.
Next is the position of treasurer. Are there any nominations from the floor for treasurer? Nominations of self or others?
I nominate Marty.
Second.
This is Marla. I'll second that.
Are you willing, Marty, to serve?
Yes.
It has been moved and seconded for Marty for treasurer. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Are there any abstentions? Welcome, Eric. We just elected officers. You've been elected for all of them.
Congratulations.
That's what happens when you're late, you know. Thank you, everybody. We did a whole bunch of things, Eric. A number of committees need help. I'll talk to you later when we can talk offline.
That sounds great. I got home and I found out my wife's having a work emergency too. So It's just one of those days. I was in deposition for 7 hours today over in Milwaukee. So I'm just well spent.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that we're ready to move on to committee and staff reports. Well,
can I ask real quick who the officers are?
The same.
Okay.
committee and finance committee and treasurer's report. Marty, have you had a chance to look at the financial reports yet?
Yes, I have. The good news is, and that doesn't mean to imply that there's bad news coming, but the good news is that our total assets.
Your papers are on your microphone. Your papers are rubbing on the microphone.
Oh. Our total assets have increased by $249,791.38 over last year. There's reasons for that. One of them being, the PPP grant or loan and other things.
And the CPP grant for the COVID issue as well. Yep.
Yes. So right now we're in good financial position, even though if you look at the reports in some areas, we're under our budget and goals. Unfortunately, I had a medical issue today and I wasn't able to come to the finance committee meeting. And I wasn't able to ask questions of things, but it appears to me that in some of the reports on the report on the last pledge drive hasn't been completed yet because there was zero money in that. So
I have to step away for a few minutes. Sorry to interrupt. Okay. But I'll try and sign back on in 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
That's not correct, Marty. The actual pledge information is in May because that's when we started collecting. So you're not going to see it in July.
Okay.
It's in there. It's just in a different month.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little more accurate to track the January through June numbers, the year-to-date numbers, because that gives an amalgam of the entire 6 months. That's a little more accurate.
Here I was thinking the pledge drive ended in June, so, but I was wrong. But one of my jobs is to warn the board if we're facing trouble, and we are not facing trouble, in my opinion. We have more than 9 months, more than 6 months, which is the recommended. We mention this a lot, but it's the recommended amount that we should have for backup to operate in reserve. So we have enough money, more than enough money to operate in reserve for the next 6 months. So that is one of the key factors that we have to think about. Even though we're spending money and taking in money, the reserve is growing right now. So that's the good news. And like I said, I have no drastic bad news at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one thing to note about the finances, though, is now that the summer pledge drive is over, we are going to see a steady decrease in funds over the next 3 months because we do not have any major fundraising efforts planned, and this happens every summer. The good news on that is the amount of work that Susan has done with the Evergreen donations and the monthly donations is really going to cushion that blow that we used to feel over the summer months. So we should see much less of a decline, much less than we had in prior years, especially looking back to 2018 and before. So, but we can expect to see a decrease in funds all the way up until October.
And one thing about the Evergreen donations is they're continuing to rise.
Yeah,
so that's more good news, is that people are willing to give on a regular basis without having to be asked every year or every few months.
So I have a question about the Evergreen donations.
Go
About
ahead, Gil.
about the lapse when there was the problem with
Thank you.
Summit
Yes.
or whoever it was.
That
so,
was
I mean,
fixed.
yeah, it's been fixed, but part of that is personal because maybe Susan can respond to this if she's still on. I mean, it's so I think I missed at least 1 month. I'm not sure whether it's 2. And so the question is, you know, I should and I will make that up. How is that being dealt with?
The only
So,
month
Gil,
that didn't run was April.
Gil, I'm assuming you donate on the 15th.
No, I donated on the 1st. No, I donated on the
so
1st.
you missed no months.
Yeah, right.
We have
I
all
missed
your
no
donations.
months?
Nope.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it all went through Gil.
Well,
So
then I
let
have
me
to go
real.
back- But I
let
have to
me
go
real
back and
quick.
look at my account then because I believe you, but it seemed to me that, I mean, when I raised this before, I had missed one. So I don't know where it got picked up.
So June
Let's
got
take
picked-
this offline.
All right, sorry.
That's okay. It's an important thing to handle, but you and Susan can deal with that. And then
Yeah,
if there's
Susan, why don't you explain that in an email to Gil offline? Yeah.
I did want to say one quick thing about it. It was a problem. Part of the problem was we had never had a problem with it before, so our bookkeeper did not pay attention that the transaction did not go through. And she did not notice that it did not go through until after the month was over in April, and she got a bank statement. We're now aware that we actually have to pay attention that the whole process gets completed and that you see a correct submitted button. That was something we needed to learn, and it was an expensive lesson.
But there was a technical problem, and Tom and the credit union worked hard, and the credit union worked with their third-party provider, and they have resolved that issue. So they finally figured out why the report wasn't being, why the entry didn't completely go through, and so that shouldn't happen in the future as well. So in a couple of ways, we've got that solved. Are there any other items in the Finance Committee and Treasurer's report to discuss?
I have nothing more.
Thank you. I don't think that program committee did meet, but I don't remember the report. So I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, this is Kurt. I did email the minutes out yesterday, I believe.
Yes, and you said there were no actionable items, I believe. So
right,
or issues that we had to deal with. Thank you. Policies. Go ahead.
Well, could I ask something, because there's something in Sybil's report that relates to program committee regarding language, which I think is worthy of some discussion. I'm not sure if that should come up now or under Sybil's report.
Sybil's report.
Okay, fine.
Was that on the first one or the one that we received today?
The one, not the one received today.
Okay. Let's take it up on Sybil's report.
Okay.
Hold up. What's the complaint received today?
Not a complaint, a further update to her staff report for the board.
Oh, I see. Okay, thanks.
Yep. I don't think policies and bylaws had anything to report.
Correct.
Elections committee did not have anything to do because they did the annual meeting. Personnel committee, I don't think we did anything, did we, Marla? I don't think we met. So
no, we didn't. Dave. And the note that the note that is in the July board agenda about Shali was actually taken care of in June. So
We can
that's really
delete that
not-
item from the agenda then.
Yeah, that would be
Some
good.
programs
Because
do.
we
Thank
already-
you, Marla.
Our pleasure.
I'll do that right now. Click. Tom's engineering and facilities and engineering committee report is in. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about acoustic absorption for programmers at home and other things. And that report was on email and in Google Drive. So security committee has not met.
Well,
Go ahead.
I want
Please.
on Tom's report. Tom, on a scale of 1 to 100, where are you putting revamping the website?
Depends what crops up within the next 60 minutes or so. Because, I mean, it should
As
go ahead.
as a consumer of it, I'm not noticing any grave deficiencies in it. So, from my perspective, I don't know how high a priority it would be given all the COVID related stuff.
So Stu, can I butt in for 1 second before Tom answers? I pushed Tom a little bit, or hope that I planted the seed, because I noticed that the website is getting hacked, right? And he's spent months fixing it, and then it crops up again, and he's done his due diligence in trying to fix it, but it does pop up. Our website on the back end, as you know from posting your show, could be much more streamlined. And in my opinion, right, when the board and the staff asks us to be digital forward, having a website that is custom coded from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, is not structurally the way that we want to go. So that's why I would encourage it. And I don't expect Tom to do that work. I expect us to hire a consultant to build it for us. It's actually not that expensive, right? So it doesn't have custom code, so we can do what we want. It's easier for volunteers to post, and it takes up much less of Tom's time. Thanks.
I second that.
Now that said, the issues that we've had with hacking, I think, and this is just purely from working on it for so much with the hacking issues, I think the backdoor was buried in the database, which then moving to a different website is not going to alleviate that issue. So a lot's going to depend on the next couple of weeks to see if everything is solid now and really cleaned up, and then we can take it from there and revisit everything. But and along with that, there's a lot of really nice looking radio websites, excuse me, community radio websites out there that are just more modern, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So it's just something that we should probably look at on a regular basis to see are we really filling the needs that we need in a digital footprint. So.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think we had a community advisory board meeting. Glenn, do you know? Pardon me.
No, the last one was back in June. It was a virtual. Yeah.
Thank you.
It was reported on the last meeting.
Anything from the business and events report that we should know, Doug?
Yeah. I guess the only thing is I still have grand session raffle tickets available. Contact me by email if you are interested in getting rid of some of those tickets for us. WORT retains all of the money from the tickets that we sell. So yeah, get a hold of me.
Thank you.
Oh, and thanks, Marla.
You're welcome, Doug.
Listener sponsor development report. That's where Susan brought up the diversity, equity, and inclusion issue, which we'll get to on item 11.
So, Doug, why don't you just drop some of those tickets off at my mailbox, 2 blocks from your house?
Yeah, Gil, just drop me an email. Let me know how many you want, and then I will reply with an email on what to do with them.
I got it.
Because there's got to be procedures on how you get stubs and money back to me.
I got it. Okay.
Cool.
Very good. I don't think
As
there
a
were
part
any...
of the listener-sponsored development report, I just want to say a huge thank you to Tom, who has fixed the Civi donor database that's been broken since at least October of 2018, when Nathan attempted to update it and broke all of the summary fields links. Those links are really important for me to determine who to send mail to, because they, especially for lapsed donor letters, but for any kind of segmentation of our database to figure out who are the best people to approach for different things. That is so important. And it's fixed. It now can do things that it's never been able to do before, because he's got the brand new up-to-date. Is it up-to-date, Tom?
It is. As soon as I got it up to date, it was immediately out of date that hour. So it's not quite up to date yet, again, but close enough.
So he'll update it again and break out a whole bunch of things.
That's probably what's going to happen.
But I just want to say thank you. I know there's a lot of pressing things around the station, but this had such a big impact on fundraising, because it meant that, you know, if I wanted to do a lapsed donor report and see who donated, say, 2 years ago, but hasn't donated in the last year, I had to generate a report of who donated 2 years ago, and then sit and go through each individual thing to see who didn't donate, who did, you know, all those files, which would be like 6,000 files to figure that out. And that was just too daunting and too much time that I thought. So this summer, you'll actually see some income coming in from a lapsed donor letter and from other donor letters that I plan. So it's going to make a difference to our fundraising. And I am just so grateful to not have to deal with a broken system anymore. So thank you to Tom.
Video's staying off because I'm blushing.
So for everybody who's talked about the website, we do not have a motion before the board about the website, so there's nothing to vote on. But I think we all agree that modernization would be a good thing. I hate to have to make a decision of, do we have COVID as a tab, or do we have elections as a tab? And it'd be nice to have a more flexible website. So moving on to the music director report. Were there any questions about Sybil's report?
Yeah, I want to introduce the issue of this language discussion. Both Terry played the Richard Pryor Chevy Chase bit from Saturday Night Live a couple of weeks ago, and Casey played something that both of which feature the N-word. And as I read Sybil's report, there are some programmers who will be able to play unexpurgated versions of that material, and some programmers who won't. Are we comfortable with that as the station policy?
I'm sorry that I didn't see that, so I can't comment yet.
It says, propose that white hosts do not say or play racial slurs on the air, especially not at this time. If you're not a member of that group, you don't get to say it or play it. That was, you know, the very famous Richard Pryor Chevy Chase bit from Saturday Night Live, and it was the other thing that Casey played. I forget what it was, but it was equally forceful. And I just want to know if, as a board, that is a policy that we endorse, that there's some programmers who can play unexpurgated material and some programmers who can't.
Discussion?
So I thought when this came up at previous staff and programming committee meetings that it was more a discussion of programmers themselves who are not a member of that group of people, that they don't get to say that word. And this isn't just the N word, but this is like, and take any word that is now seen as could be hateful, right? That they just don't get to say that word. And we're not going to legislate what people of color use to refer to themselves or to their friends or guests, right? We're also.
But the programmers aren't saying the word.
Right.
Terry
yeah, that's
did.
my point. Right. So
Terry
the artists are saying the word. That's
I
the
believe
issue.
Terry also did.
Terry introduced it, but you can certainly differentiate between saying the title of the thing and playing the thing.
May I?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
and the
so
question is, can a programmer play it?
this is something that's big in my house. I just had a conversation with my daughter about this, and I can tell you that when in our mixed race home, we have this discussion from the African American members of my family, that is exactly how they feel. It is a word that they can choose to adopt in the way they feel is comfortable, but they're uncomfortable even when we sing along with artists in private, say the N-word. And this came up just this last week because there was a company party for one of my kids and we all went. And there was a Caucasian woman singing along with one of the songs that the DJ had played, and with and this and then that. An entire group of African Americans felt uncomfortable and left. So I have to say I kind of agree with the fact that from that point of view, and I wholeheartedly support them, that there are certain things that I think particular communities, whether it's female or LGBT or African American, can work out for themselves in their own communities as they see fit without us bickering about it. You know what I mean? Without us deciding. I would feel it was very inappropriate. I don't care how famous the artist was, for me to introduce anything using that word as a white woman. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, I've got a feeling that.
Yeah, I want to check on that to make sure I understand what you just said, because what we're saying is that the host has played this music. He has not said, or she has not said anything about what's in the music. The artist is using the word, and the host is not saying anything. You just talked about people singing along with it. But
Again, Terry used the word in reference to a song, and even when in reference to a song,
separate. That's separate. Okay.
Is somebody going to tell Boss Lady that she can't? I mean, as far as I can tell, a lot of the music that Boss Lady plays has those words.
I didn't invite you to talk to Boss Lady because she doesn't say it.
Charlie, what are we? Can Boss Lady and Casey play music that has that word in it if they don't announce the word? Because what the programming committee said is that if you're not a member of the group, you don't get to play it or say it. And
right.
according to the program committee, Boss Lady cannot play a rap song that uses that word. Is that the policy we're about to endorse? Obviously, Terry was wrong to gratuitously say it. And Casey was probably wrong to gratuitously say it if he did. But can Boss Lady play the music that she plays every week?
Yeah, I want to hear what Rosie says. Yeah.
Okay, I'm new here, but I'm not.
Everybody, if you have a speaker, can you mute yourself? We're getting a lot of echoes.
Tell her that she can't say that? I just want to understand your point of view.
Your audio is breaking up a lot, Lindsay.
I think I'm getting feedback from where my
I think it's somebody. I don't think it's you. I think it's somebody else that probably has it on speaker or something.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Hang on. All right, is that better? Yay! Okay, so I'm trying to understand before I answer Stu's point of view here. If I'm understanding you correctly, you're asking a question. Do we feel that we can say that she should not, this particular person should not play that particular kind of music? Is that what you're saying? Or are we concerned with the overall policies that we've expressed?
The proposal, the understanding from the program committee, as expressed in Sybil's report, is that if you're not a member of that group, you don't get to say it or play it. And I'm asking the question, are we as a board comfortable with telling Boss Lady, who is white, that there's music she can't play because it has that word in it?
Well, I can tell you that I would personally feel more than comfortable talking to just about anyone that was white about the appropriateness of playing the music. So I can't, what my issue is if we're talking about the overall policy or if we're talking about one particular person that you're concerned about.
Well, there's one particular person whose weekly music, I think, frequently uses that word. I think Terry and Casey, it was a real one-off. But for Boss Lady, it's not infrequent for her to play, hard rap or hard hip hop that's got that language. And
I think that when you said you wanted to hear what I have to say, I guess that my opinion would be that there should be someone involved there that was of color to help determine the appropriateness of the program. That would be my feeling. There's no reason with the huge community we have out there that we couldn't have a discussion or talk, consult something on that order. I wouldn't make one rule for one person, though. I mean,
let me say something here, Stu. I don't think that there is an item before the board for us to consider, and I think what you're asking is this policy that the programming committee is talking about, is this valid? And I think that we can ask the programming committee to have a conversation with Boss Lady and make sure that works for Boss Lady, and that doesn't put us in conflict. Doug, go ahead. You're muted.
Okay, I couldn't get to my microphone on button. I think this speaks to a different issue, which is that the two hosts that brought this up, Terry and Casey, their style of music on their shows is very outside the same genre of music that Boss Lady plays. Boss Lady is deeply embedded in the hip hop community. She has a late night show that starts at like 1 a.m. and is deeply respected in the hip hop community in Madison. And regardless of who Boss Lady is, she knows the music and she's deeply respected. She gets the most fan mail at the station of any host. That includes Bill Malone when he was here. And that's very different than Terry playing a song at 10 o'clock in the morning with the N-word in it. And these are two different things. And I think that any policy that is made has to reflect the time of day, the style of music that is being played in the genre of this show. Because on Boss Lady's show, people know what to expect. They're going to hear that word. It's late at night, and it serves a specific community. Where Terry's show is a folk and international show, where those kinds of, even the comedy rhetoric, Terry never put this stuff on his show before until the Black Lives Matter movement, until George Floyd. That's when Terry started taking this aggressive Black Lives Matter stance and playing this type of thing. But at the same time, is that appropriate? And we've heard time and time again from these communities that is not appropriate. So I think we need to take that into consideration. And that's all I got to say.
I don't want this to be dealt with at the board level. I think it should be dealt with at the programming committee level and resolved at that level and then reported back. Kurt, go ahead. You're muted, Kurt. Kurt, you're muted. Kurt, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Okay. The programming committee never reached any consensus on that issue. It's not in the programming committee minutes. Maybe it's in Sybil's report, but and Sybil mentioned it, but there was never any discussion in the programming committee. And I think it would be an appropriate place to refer to discussion. We could talk about it and then report back.
I would also just like to add that I think there needs to be a distinction maybe between white people amplifying Black voices and white people co-opting language of Black and marginalized communities. And I think that's, anyway, I just wanted to just lay that out there because I'm certain you can play protest and poetry that has the word, I've played poetry that centers POC voices, and some of that language is in there. I've played that on radio, but I haven't repeated that language myself. But if that's, I also don't know if I would really necessarily make a distinction between like in the morning or in the evening. A lot of times I kind of get upset when hip hop gets relegated to late night, you know, because they're just like, why can't you have it anytime during the day? Why?
Well,
know?
The FCC rules cover what you can and can't say on the air by time of day. So,
yeah, unfortunately,
that's one of the issues. Mm-hmm. And to play it in a edited or a bleeped form is takes away a lot of the value.
Sure.
Again,
I mean,
I'd like to refer this back to the programming committee for them to deal with, and ask that the programming committee, you know, consider Sybil's issues and consider talking to Boss Lady and ask what her issues are, and then craft language that fits all of the situations that we have, so that we don't have to ignore a rule because of this or because of that. It has to be a rule that works for everything, for every situation.
One thing that I'm curious about, and maybe Stu, you could fill me in on this, or Doug, maybe you would know well. I do feel strongly that, certainly in terms of saying racial epithets, I think the idea that people who aren't part of a group shouldn't, you know, be allowed to say that. If somebody's part of a group and they're using that epithet, maybe it is some sort of way of taking ownership, in the way that, you know, the gay community took even the word gay, which now I don't think anybody thinks of as a slur within gay circles and LGBTQ circles. So I feel strongly that I think we should act, and we could act quickly to say that people can't say this. What we're talking about with playing this music, it sounds like may take some more time. But I guess the only question to me is, do we have anybody who we would want to exempt from that, or say, like, would we feel comfortable with Boss Lady using this language herself?
Let me provide a little more clarity to that, Eric, and that is, Sybil did put this question out on the Music Hosts Facebook page, and Boss Lady herself did respond to the thread. And Boss Lady recognizes herself as a white woman, and she does not use the word herself on her show.
Right. So I think putting a station policy in place that, as an example, white people shouldn't be saying, this particular epithet, but I think we could expand it and have it be, more inclusive or more blanketing than that, so that we're, saying if you're not part of a group, don't say it. And then we can reserve the discussion as far as don't play it, right? It sounds like that may be something that is going to take some more time and investigation, but it seems like everybody here, and I certainly would agree with it. I mean, it just seems to make sense that we shouldn't be having, white folks on WORT, saying racial epithets. I don't think there's a need for it.
Sure, but before we continue, I'd like to hear from Alita personally. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, if you're introducing a piece, right? Let's say a song that has the name in it. If you're white, I wouldn't say the word. I would either say N-word or, I mean, that's the accepted policy usually. I mean, black folks usually don't say the word. I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable with using the N-word on the air. I mean, even if I'm going to introduce a piece where, I mean, I have a book that's by that name, you know what I mean? And I probably, if I was having a discussion about the books, I definitely, if I was white, I would never say the word in an introduction for a piece. But I mean, as far as like playing music that has the word in it, I mean, there's all kinds of DJs of all different ethnic backgrounds that play hip hop, And yeah, singing along with the song that has the N-word in it, yeah, is problematic.
So, Stu, do you think we need a motion to refer this to the programming committee? You're muted.
Why am I still muted? To make it clean, yeah, why not? I'll move to request the program committee consider policies on programmers playing music or using language which is considered racially offensive.
Second.
Was that Rosie who seconded?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Thank you. So Stu moved and Rosie seconded that we refer to committee the question of racially sensitive music. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Are there any abstentions? Thank you. That was one of the big issues. And
you going home?
Who's going home?
Okay.
Not me.
No. So can we? Yeah.
Then News, Talk, and Public Affairs report. Shally, are you there still? Do we have anything actionable on your report since you're here?
Only the suggestion from me and Susan, which is under item 11.
Very good. And then, Glenn, do you want to say something about the volunteer and outreach report?
No, it's all there.
Okay, good.
Just for a second, just to go back and a shout out to Shally for getting, and I guess Tom for getting the news podcast up and together, and for that brand new page on the election information. Both are very good and important improvements. And shout out to Shally and Tom for doing that.
And to Jonah, thanks, Stu.
And to Jonah.
Yeah, that elections page is more than half of our top web traffic in the past month. So really happy to see that take shape. And we've got a couple more things to do for the podcast, but it's up and running, so you can subscribe. Thanks.
So, Marla, I don't know if you heard us talk about the motion to refer the sensitive language for racially charged words, and so we can talk about that offline if you don't have that in the minutes.
I do. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. Finally, new business. It has been discussed in a couple of reports that WORT does not have a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We talk about it indirectly in our mission statement, but we do not take affirmative action to measure whether we are diverse and we have equity and we have inclusion. There are some organizations that actually do a DEI report every year, and they find ways to measure what different mileposts, like in terms of staff and board and volunteers, what are we doing, and what are we doing about recruiting staff and board members and volunteers that match the diversity of our community. We also don't have an idea of how we define community. Is it just the people who listen over the radio and in the communities touched by the radio signal, or is it the world because we reach the world on the internet? So I open it up for your discussion, ladies and gentlemen, people of all kinds.
Okay, I want to jump in and just say the takeaway that I'm getting is that we, as a largely white organization, when we're trying to establish benchmarks, shouldn't our first goal to be to reach out to people who have actual experience with us, various people of color, and say, what were the either former volunteers or current volunteers, and ask them, what do you see as the barriers to diversity, equity, and inclusion at WORT?
So the first question is, do we want to create a body that is responsible for asking questions like that, for developing questions like that? Is this a board committee? Is this a staff position? What are your thoughts?
I would like the committee to be, my view is, from what has been successful at other stations that are further along in this process than we are. And I welcome anyone to join in on these regular meetings that are happening right now. I'll send the link for the NFCB. It might be hard if you're not already somebody that's been participating to get into them, but it is to listen if you're a white person and stay out of the way of doing a lot more listening and a lot less talking. So I would like the committee to be, or the work group to be, made up as many people of color as possible, which is what other stations have done.
Thank you. Rosie, did you have something to add?
No, not add. I was just asking a question that I'm trying to understand. I've got the document open with all the different committees.
Yes.
That policy one we were talking about earlier,
Yes.
would that not be the appropriate?
No, it would not be. This has to be, the policies and bylaws is the nitty-gritty of the operations of the station. It's going to have a lot of work coming up dealing with the volunteer handbook, with the social media policy. This really needs to be a standalone, focused body.
One in the committee process. Okay, gotcha.
I don't think policies and bylaws could give it the attention and the singular focus that would be appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you. What about the Community Advisory Board as a place to dedicate some of this work? Also, I would say that seems like a lot of. Yes, hi, this is Megan. Yes.
Okay, I
hi.
can't see anything because I'm on the phone, but I invite you to go into the board reports and look at the community advisory reports for the past year or more.
Okay, yeah, I haven't read the
and
community
then make a
advisory.
decision. I think that you'll get a clear answer about why this isn't appropriate to the community advisory board.
Okay. Okay, great. So yeah, I'll take a look at that and try to understand. I just have used that language like in a sort of citywide, countywide initiative when I worked at Champaign-Urbana, and we had a welcoming initiative. And it sort of used terms of like inclusivity, like including people in the current system. Like, why would we want to assimilate people into a white supremacist patriarchy culture? I think it takes, I think racism is, well, it is. Racism is a white person problem. So I think definitely paying people of color to deal with the emotional labor of having to explain to us the problem that we created ourselves sounds like a lot. I would definitely pay them for sure. I would definitely probably have like a dedicated staff member hired or something. I would also like to advise this being a task within the overall board, creating a strategic audit of our policy, of our own practices, and really understanding how white supremacist culture is at work in organizations, even the most intentional and progressive organizations, which shows up. And it's work that can be done amongst white people, and it's work that has to be done between white people because racism is a white person problem. Here's some information if you want to read more about it. I would encourage maybe a group reading on how to do an internal audit at the board level. Thank you.
Other discussion?
Yeah, I just can't turn on my microphone because it keeps getting turned off on me. I would say from a staff viewpoint that this work should definitely include the position of the volunteer outreach coordinator, because both volunteerism and outreach in general are both important parts of this. So I definitely think, Glenn, you know, as you're transitioning out over the next 9 months, I think that's something that maybe this work should also be incorporated as an ongoing basis into that new position.
Thank you, Doug. Further discussion? Elizabeth, can I put you on the spot? Do you have thoughts about this issue?
Nothing immediately comes to mind, although I agree with a lot of what Megan said. I think a thought that kept coming to mind was, is it appropriate for us, as far as reaching out to non-white people in the WORT and the Madison community, I think we would have to be really intentional about not creating more emotional labor and not creating more work, especially because asking people to be on a work group in the WORT world or in the nonprofit world, asking someone to be on a work group is just another way for, I mean, it's a volunteer thing. You're being asked to work for free and people are already busy. And I agree that we need to be really, really conscientious about asking people of color, particularly Black folks in the Madison community, about doing more emotional labor and more free work that is due to something that white people created. So I'm really vibing on that. I would be really curious to know, especially from like the NFCB, if they have any resources as far as like, you know, reaching out to Black leaders or Black media makers or Black station owners and managers as far as finding people, like hiring people who can talk about these things, and things like that. So
Can I just say the NFCB has, those are some of the calls I've been on, And their recommendation is from the NFCB to reach out to volunteers that are people of color.
Oh,
I can
okay.
share that with you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Second, when you're talking about the board and you're talking, and I have always, my first idea is to ask if people want to do a simple survey. If they don't want to participate, great. But if they have thoughts about the limitations on WORT, and I wouldn't use the word inclusion. If I were doing the committee, it would be diversity, equity, and social justice. I think inclusion is a problematic word. It seems to imply assimilation more than the word social justice. But there's no plan to have Black people for free, or Latinos, or Hmong, or any of these other groups that are not perhaps feeling that there is diversity and equity at WORT, to have them carry the load. My report always has said that we hire someone from that once we have some insight from our own volunteers about whether they see problems here, that they can choose to participate in or not. But the goal is to get to a place where we actually hire people of color to do this helping work with us. But I'd like to take a first step, because I have heard people on the board say to me, our doors are open to everyone. What else do you want us to do? And I feel that having a report come back, a survey come back and say, we don't know what we don't know as white people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going for.
There's a number of issues here. I used to be on a parent-teacher organization in a school that had a lot of non-white pupils. And we were trying to, I was on the parent-teacher organization, and we were trying to get more parents of color to join the PTO. And no matter what we did, free food, daycare, changing hours that the meeting was held, we weren't able to change that. And when we finally started talking to individual people, they said, well, between my 3 jobs, when am I supposed to come over here? I can't take time out of a job that I don't get vacation hours, or I can't take hours off without losing pay. So you're not going to get my attention that way. And so in representing that kind of a person in our audience and our community, we're going to have to be more creative.
Dave, this is Shali on Susan's phone. I just want to butt in and say that I think part of the slippage in this conversation is equity, right? It's not just how do we get people in the door, right? I think we do not a great job, but an okay job, right? But we don't retain people. What can we do to make this space actually listen and welcome, right? It's part of why I've been pushing to have paid childcare, right? So people who maybe don't have the opportunity to have that can actually have paid childcare in some form, so they can be a volunteer here. There are systemic barriers, and that is what I would hope that the committee looks at. In addition to what communities are we reaching out to? Where are we tabling? What are we doing, right? Other than we have a website and it's there and you can tune into the radio. So I just want to pop in and say equity. And this isn't just a racial issue, right? But I think that should be the focus.
It's economic,
right?
Yes, I agree. We haven't come up with something that the board can take action on.
Yes, we do. Create a committee or a work group.
Okay.
Shelley and Susan, this is Marlo. What do you prefer? Do you prefer a committee or a work group? And whom do you see as participating on that?
I would prefer that it does actually have minutes, so it can be accountable to the board and that the board can discuss this at every meeting, but Susan prefers a work group.
I prefer a work group with minutes.
Okay.
No, but Shali, the two are not mutually exclusive. The only difference between a committee and a work group is a standing committee of the board has specific meeting requirements for the CPB, including 7-day advance notice of all meetings, minutes taken for those meetings, where work groups is a little looser, not within WORT. We can make it as tight as we want. But those reporting requirements for CBB aren't required with a work group. That's the difference.
Okay. So I would like the work group to be a work group and to provide minutes to the board.
Thank you. Staff members who are not members of the board can't make a motion. Is there a board member who wants to make a motion?
Can I move that we create that work group with minutes to the board?
Rosie has moved that we create a work group. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Marla has seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of creating a work group to discuss diversity and equity and some third word
Social
to
justice.
be decided, say aye.
Aye.
Well, I really think we should decide what it's called before we
Okay.
pass it on. Are we calling it?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion, social justice, or social justice. I like DIC.
What's DIC?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I guess
That's
what
DEI.
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 Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it is kind of the standard phrase.
But we just had a conversation around inclusion having negative connotations, so.
I also like the social justice,
Mhm.
and that would really dovetail with what Community Shares has been working the last couple of years to try and do.
So Rosie, it's your motion.
Okay. So I move
Way to go, Dave.
for diversity, equity, and social justice with minutes to the board.
Okay.
Thank you. Marla, do you have that
I'll
down
still
in our
second
minutes?
it. Yes, and I will still second that.
I would say diversity, equity, and liberation.
I fucking throw some revolution in there too.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're getting late, getting crazy here. We have a motion and a second. Do we want to vote on that, or do we want to make another motion?
I mean, liberation just has the context of liberating oppressed peoples from white supremacist culture, so it's just a little more direct. But I do like social justice as well, so I think diversity, equity, and social justice would be fine. Thanks.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Are there any abstentions? The motion passes. Next, who on the board wants to be on that committee?
I do.
Thank you. You sort of had to. You open yourself up, and I'm sorry for taking advantage, but yeah.
Thanks, Rosie.
Other board members who would like to be on the DESJ committee?
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Thank you, Megan.
I'll be on it.
Thanks, Alita. Thank you. And then Glenn, do you want to be on that? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I do.
I can. I also, one of the things I was going to say earlier is I think that we should be trying to get some of our community organizations like the Urban League and Michael Johnson from the Boys and Girls Club and Centro Hispano and some Hmong organizations involved as well. I think that would be really, really great.
They don't have to be members of the committee, but
No, not
certainly
members of the committee,
the
but at
outreach.
some
Yep.
point, we should be doing more partnering with those organizations.
Well, Glenn, that's part of the reason why I think your position would be so well suited to this particular work group, because you have so many community connections with these different organizations through your work with non-music promotional exchanges and so forth,
Sure.
and volunteer swapping, etc., community shares membership. I just feel it not only works really well with your position, but I also think that both Susan and Shali are really overworked right now, and like neither one of them really need anything on their plate.
Will they please?
I still want to be part of this committee. I've quit other committees in order to do, and I've been doing the work of having on my own time, following all of these webinars and all of these resolutions. So I have the time for it and I want to do it.
No objection.
That's fair. But I also think Glenn needs to be part of it.
I agree. I'm fine with Glenn and I and any other staff member that wants to be on this. But I do believe that the members are not the Boys and Girls Club. That's something down the line for us to be doing
I didn't say
later.
they were members. Susan, I didn't say they were members.
Yep.
I'm just saying that's what we're talking about right now, Glenn, members.
Yep, we're good. We're good there. Marla, are you capturing these names for me?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Megan, did you have
I'm
a
also
comment?
fine. Yeah, I don't know what the size of this needs to be, but I'm also fine stepping back from this committee if we feel like someone else should be on it. I don't need to.
I welcome you to this committee. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. No, it's fine. I don't want to take up
It's
space.
wonderful to get in a controversial committee for your first committee.
Well, it's the work that needs to be done.
It is. It is.
It is.
That's all I have on the agenda. Are there any other issues that you wish to talk about? Very good.
I'm just confirming in my notes, but I know it'll be in the notes. Did Alita want to or not want to be on the committee?
She did.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. That's what I had.
The chair would welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Eric has moved.
Second.
Rosie has seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Are there any abstentions? Thank you very much for an incredible meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Thanks for a
Good night.
great meeting.
Now I'm free till engineering for Tony in the morning.
Yeah.
Night, everybody.
Good night. Good night, Doug.
How'd you get a little tough though? Yeah, it's just a little tough. You see myself rocking this?
No.
What?
No.
You don't like it?
No.
If I was like bald, it would.
You have to wear it on your forehead.
No, I don't really like this one. Like this one more, Mom?
Yes, your babushka.
Yes.
No, it could be it could be. Or a scarf. I'll see you soon. Tell your mom I said hi.
Are you taking up notes from your meeting?
Uh-huh. Exciting.
How is that going?
It's fine. Did you hear him? That's interesting stuff. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Dave asked that
You didn't like his bandana?
No. Dave asked that I take notes for I do want somebody. All right. What was his name?